to order the November 17th meeting of the Conestoga Valley Board of School Directors. I want to welcome everyone who is here, as well as those that join us all online. Will you please join me for the pledge to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May we have attendance, Mrs. Martin?
We have 7 school directors present tonight. Dr. Martin and Mr. Hirsch are absent. We do have a quorum in place.
I'd also note that in attendance are the board officers, Mrs. Martin, who's the secretary, Mrs. Hunsinger, who's the treasurer, the superintendent, Dr. Hartman, and his administrative cabinet. This is our general meeting, the second meeting of the month, where most official votes are taken, many of which are listed on a consent agenda, which includes those items which are routine or have been discussed at our last week's work session or previously. Our meetings observe all legal requirements and our district policies to the best of our understanding and ability. All agendas and related public documents are available on the website. Are there any corrections to the agenda, any additions, deletions, or changes?
Yes, we had one update today. The 2025 data review and the major curriculum item presentation was updated. The reason for the change to that file, after completion of the original data set containing the unofficial PSSA and Keystone data from 2025, PDE publicly released the Future Ready PA Index site. The updated PowerPoint reflects the final official PDE data set from 2025.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other corrections or changes? If not, I will take a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda. Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Nays or abstentions? If not, the agenda is approved. Board commendations. Thank you to the Conestoga Valley Education Foundation for awarding $43,000 in grants during its fall grant cycle, with grants ranging from reset room equipment to Hummingbird steam robotic kits. The $43,000 includes $5,000 in pre-K scholarship funding. Conestoga Valley High School held its 50th annual college night on November 3rd at the high school, and thank you to Barbie McDaniel and everyone else who helped make the evening a success as usual. Kudos to the art department for a successful start to the school year. The October art department report can be found online. Congratulations to the CV High School Model UN team, which took part in its first competition earlier this month. The high school's first winner was CJ Nugent and Isla Bartelt. And bravo to the cast and crew of the high school's fall play, The Curious Savage. Performances were held this last weekend. Superintendent comments. Dr. Hartman.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Groff. Good evening, everyone. A couple announcements this evening, mostly around new hires. But before I do that, I do want to just say thank you and recognize our 2 board members who this evening's their last board meeting. We're going to do a little bit of more in-depth recognition here towards the end of the meeting, but I did want to mention as part of my report a thank you to Phil Hurst for 4 years of service. I know Phil couldn't be here this evening, and Michael Talley for 12 years of service. So certainly will be missed, but we're sure you won't be strangers. So thank you, and we'll celebrate in a little while here. In addition, I have several new hires I'd like to introduce to the CV community this evening. I'm going to start with Christiane Calvert. Kristen, if you could give a little wave. Ms. Calvert is joining us as a learning support long-term substitute at the middle school. She most recently has worked as an emotional support paraprofessional with the Warwick School District and has also worked as a personal care assistant at Mannheim Central. Prior to these experiences, she worked in management and sales in the private sector for many years. She's earned a bachelor's degree in early childhood education and special education from Eastern University in 2024. So welcome, Kate. Next, I'd like to introduce Marina Mazahari. Marina will be graduated from Millersville in 2023 with a degree in early childhood education and special education. Since graduating, she has worked as a special education teacher at New Story in Mountville, and she'll be joining us as an emotional support teacher at the middle school. So welcome. Next, we have Erin Young. Erin is going to be joining us as a learning support teacher at the middle school as well. Ms. Young has taught special education in the Southeastern York County School District, Dallastown Area School District, Manheim Township School District, and most recently at Hempfield. She has a Bachelor's of Science in Elementary Education and Special Education from Millersville and a Master's degree in Educational Development and Strategies from Wilkes University. So welcome, Erin. Next, we have Taryn Bilger. Taryn has her bachelor's degree in elementary education from IUP and a master's in teaching and curriculum from Penn State. She began her career in the Hanover Public School District and has also worked in the Gettysburg Area School District and Manheim Township School District prior to taking time off to raise her young family. She'll be joining us as a fourth grade long-term sub at Leola. And last but not least, Hope Garner. Hope is going to be our new HR generalist. As you're aware, we've been looking for that position since Ms. Hurst became our Director of Human Resources. Hope graduated in 2020 from Millersville University with a degree in philosophy. Prior to Millersville, she also attended West Virginia University. She has worked for the Hempfield School District since 2023 as both a human resources assistant and most recently a human resources employment specialist. So glad to have you here, Hope, and to all of our new hires this evening. Welcome.
The board welcomes all of our new staff members.
And that concludes my report.
Mrs. Martin, is there any correspondence?
There is not.
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped board comments. Did anyone from the board like to mention something that they attended? Most of these have already been mentioned in the earlier remarks. The high school play, the Powder Puff Derby, those that celebrated something special on Veterans Day, and our own veteran, Mr. Talley, JA Real Life event, and BizTown, I understand, was a great success. Now we'll move on. Is there correspondence?
There's no correspondence tonight.
Okay. If not, we'll move on to the presentations. Mrs. Hunsinger, you have an enrollment report for us?
Yes, I do. So good evening. So every year, we give you an update on our student enrollment projections, and we use this to identify any potential trends in increasing enrollment, and that way we would have to address any potential capacity issues at buildings. So we first start with a history of the birth rates, and this is something that's posted by the state. They actually do this broken down to various categories, but you can see our current year, we have 2025, we had 508 births in the district, in the municipalities here. So really, that has been very consistent with the last several years, and the projections are showing that it's going to remain fairly consistent. So next then, what we do is to look at what our estimated enrollment numbers were last year and compare it to what the actual enrollments were for this year. So PDE prepares these enrollment projections. And for CV, last year they had projected 25-26 enrollment would be about 3,698 students. And the actual enrollment as of our October 1 snapshot was 3,712. So there was a 14 student difference there, and I think that's a fairly, about as close as you're going to get. So breaking it down a little further into the elementary buildings, and this particular slide includes our pre-K numbers, but you can see that for 24-25 actual October 1 snapshot, we had 1,789 elementary students compared to this year at 1,710. So that is showing a decrease in our actual enrollment at the elementary level by 79 students. And then moving to the secondary level, last year the actual was for middle school and high school was 2,161 students. Dropped this year to 2,115, so that's a decrease by 46 students. And then taking all of that, we put all of the kindergarten through 12th grade onto one slide here showing 3 years of actual enrollments versus 3 years of the PDE enrollment projections. And you can see that our enrollment has been decreasing steadily, not significant, but that PDE's projections, again, if they stay accurate, are going to show a continued decrease. Now, we do have some large apartment townhouse buildings that are going up in the area, specifically the ones that are over here on Greenfield Road and Willow. We have no idea what type of enrollment that will bring, but in discussions with East Lampeter Township, tried to use the Reserve, the other apartment complex further down the road, as kind of an estimate, because that's built with the same kind of more of the higher costs, higher end. We currently have one student that we're transporting from the Reserve to one of our buildings. So we used to have about 14 the other year, so that has dropped off, or else the kiddos are just driving themselves to work, to school too. Now, the IU prepares a survey every year, and then this is just a nice report where they're summarizing here for 24-25 some of the various enrollments in different areas. And I just want to bring you to two items there. Number one is the CV District Cyber Charter Schools. We have at this time reported about 87 that would be full-time students in our own CVVA program. But also what is interesting is that comparing CV's non-public school students compared to others, we are second in the county for having the highest number. And that's probably attributable to a lot of the Amish population we have in the district. You can see Solanco's the largest, has the largest nonprofit, non-public enrollment, and that would also be because of their large Amish population. And then interesting too, with our homeless students, this report shows that we have 326 homeless students as of last year, and that puts us right in about the middle of the pack for the school districts in the county. And this is just a breakdown currently of where we stand with CVVA. We have about 85 full-time students and 130 part-time students enrolled in our CVVA program. And then there's a further breakdown, too, of students that have an IEP, individual education plan, or a GIEP, which is for gifted. And of course, I can't not show you the slides on the outside cyber charter enrollments. You can see that we had a significantly lower enrollment back in 2019 timeframe. And then with COVID hitting, we had a lot of students that enrolled in the outside cyber schools. And those numbers really have not fluctuated too much since then. We always figured that if a student enrolled in a cyber, they're probably going to stay there instead of bouncing back and forth. And then, again, I mentioned this last month when we were talking about the 24-25 fiscal results, and I'll be mentioning it in a little bit here later on this evening, too. Our total cyber charter tuition cost for 24-25 was just under $1.7 million. So I'll be bringing you an update, too, on the impact of this new state budget and what looks like we're going to have for cyber tuition reform. So that, and I always just like to have, no, wrong presentation, sorry. That's the end of my slides.
When you look at the numbers of students at the cyber charter schools, I understand once they were there, they tended to stay. Mm-hmm. When you look at the grade mix, do you see that coming down, that it wasn't students that were involved in COVID?
Not really seeing that decrease on like students aging out of the program. I'm not seeing that significantly.
What worries me about that is that these cyber charter schools, student achievement is so low. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if the parents just look at it as choice and don't realize that it's really a challenge to do well in their curriculum.
Yeah,
We do our best.
that's right. We're trying.
Any other questions for Mrs. Hunsinger? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Drs. Mann and Kozer and Mrs. Schaefer.
All right, well, good evening, everyone. We are here to present our 25 data review and our major curriculum items as part of our projections for next year as we look at our budget and so forth. So just to start looking at demographics, this gives you obviously a nice picture of the demographics of the district. Really has not changed that much in the past couple of years. Fluctuate maybe a point here, a point there, but really it's been pretty stable. And here when you're looking at, continue looking at the demographics and you look at the foster care, homeless and so forth, again, the numbers actually with the homeless have started to come down. So we're starting to, which is fantastic. I'm not sure why, can't speak to why, but those numbers have decreased a little bit. And you can see our special education and so forth. Now just to highlight a couple things. As of today, just released from PDE, just to give you a sense of where we rank in the county. For ESL, we're 3rd in the county for number of students. Special education, we're 8th in the county. Homeless, we're 3rd in the county. And then for non-white, we're 3rd in the county. And economically disadvantaged, we're 9th in the county. So those numbers were just released today. Just to give you a little context of that as well. And again, you can look at these numbers over time. You can see fairly consistent, although we're seeing, when you look at 24-25, their actual numbers, and the 25-26 are unofficial numbers. So just wanted to point that out, they're unofficial, so there may be some fluctuation. They may fluctuate a little bit in the future.
So each year we go over with you the formal final PSSA data. And as Mrs. Martin stated at the beginning of the meeting, we put the presentation together based on our internal data, and then PDE released what's called the Future Ready PA Index, which is the final with all of their calculations and formulas. And so we wanted to update the presentation tonight with those final numbers. So that was the change in some of our graphs. It's just typically a couple of percentages here or there based on their files compared to our internal files. So each year, we walk you through 2 sets of data. Our PSSA and our Keystone data is our proficiency data, our achievement data, right? How many students are actually achieving at those grade level standards or above? And then we also share with you our growth data, and that academic growth data shows us, did students meet their expected projection for where they were predicted to be on the PSSA, or did they exceed those predictions, or did they not quite hit those predicted targets? And so we walk you through both of those because both measures really give a more comprehensive picture of where we are with the health of our system. So it's important to know that the data you're seeing, we've been working with since about June 2nd. So our schools have been through this data in every which way possible. We've tossed it and turned it as part of our school-wide planning process. We've done much deeper root cause analysis, dug deeper, compared other data sources to this. So you're getting the final summative high-level view while our schools have been working with this for quite some time now. So let's start looking at our math. You're looking at PSSA math. That's our K-8 achievement measure, so the number of students that were proficient. What you can see is at elementary, we're in our 4th year of an increase. You see a circle around 2022. That was this board that helped to adopt the Stepping Stones core resource. And so that is the year it was implemented, and you can see that's been a really critical factor in getting all of our classrooms
in consistent grade level, standards-based instruction. And so we're continuing to see the outcomes of that core resource coupled with the modern learning curriculum and those math performance tasks. Over the course of post-COVID years here, we're up about 15% in elementary math. And I just think it's really important just to highlight what that means. That means that over 120 students are now mathematically proficient that weren't previously. And so the research that ties math achievement to other life outcomes, high school graduation rates, higher earnings post-graduation, more students going to college when they're proficient in math. That's 120 kids that have been impacted by these changes that we're seeing within the instructional system. Looking at our middle school, we were excited to see that bump this year. We kind of had just some slow-moving progress, but this year we saw another 3%. This 2025 is circled. That was the first year that the middle school started working with the Desmos math resource. Again, that was another resource the board approved for us to be using in the middle school. So at K-8 math, we're starting to see those changes that we've been working toward really take root and elevate more kids to proficiency.
I have a quick question on that. Now, 53% is proficient, but then you have that alternate percent that are not proficient. What are you doing about every single one of those students who are falling below that proficiency? Because then that's going to snowball in middle school and high school. And I understand that everyone's going to go into a math field, but we're talking, I mean, second graders, third graders, it's addition and subtraction, and they have checkbooks and bills to pay. So that's my concern, is that 47% that are failing.
Absolutely. Can we address that when we get to the curriculum, our budget items side of things? Because we'll walk you through the comprehensive plan pieces and some of the upcoming initiatives that we're working toward. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Continuing with math, looking at the Keystone algebra at the high school, just to point something out, last year, if you're thinking back what this looked like, the graph looked a little differently. This year, we're looking at cohort data, specifically the junior class. So as the junior class went through the programming. And so some of these students have taken the algebra, who have taken it in 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, you know, up through. And so this is looking at cohort data. Just wanted to point that out in case you go back and look and say, wait a minute, why does this look so different to that point there? The other things to take into consideration when you're looking at this is how this impacts graduation and as the students work through the programming. And the resources that are in place to help with remediation and things of that nature along the way. And so that when students need to retest, they're eligible to retest, and we are working on putting programming in place to help support that, if that's the right decision to make. Act 158 is another thing that you probably heard about or at least somewhat aware of, and that's with the graduation pathways that the students follow. Passing all the tests would be like pathway 1. Pathway 2 would be a composite score of all 3 together. And then there's other pathways. I just want to, again, just point out, there's a bunch of things in the background that play into these numbers as well.
Okay, so that's the achievement side of math. And then we also look at the growth side. So for the students, Mrs. Capcut, at your point, who are not proficient, we definitely want to do a double check then. Are they growing? Are they meeting their expected academic growth in 1 year? And so when you're looking at this chart here, you see the overwhelming majority of our grade levels that are in that dark blue. That means that the students in those grade levels have left their grade level well above where they were predicted to be. And so some of the strategies that we're putting in place to support the students who are not proficient, we are seeing those have an impact because students are actually moving further than what they were predicted to move within 1 year. When you're looking at the growth numbers there that are in the 4 and above, that is absolutely exceptional growth for a cohort of students. And so we're looking at all of our different levels of students. We're seeing them exceed where they were predicted to be at the end of their grade level in math. And so again, just another lens to look at the data, to look at the health of our instructional system. And so what that means for our takeaways at elementary, We are staying the course. Our data is showing that consistent and steady growth, 15% over 4 years, is actually pretty amazing to see that much of an impact on a district system as big as ours. And so we're staying the course. Sticking to the plan that we've put in place. The real-world connections, that's been a piece we've been continuing to emphasize through the authentic performance test within the profile of a CV learner. Again, giving students to demonstrate those math skills in context, in real-life situations, has been a really key anchor as part of our curriculum. And then finally, that fidelity to the core resource. Last week, we talked about learning walks. We talked about the opportunity to use the Classroom Mosaic app to do some checks in our classroom for fidelity. Are we seeing what we expect to see in classrooms? And so that's going to be a really key piece as we continue to move forward at the elementary level.
And at the middle level, similar, staying the course and fidelity to the core resource, like Joanne mentioned earlier, we're in year 2 of that resource. We want to do a root analysis of that 7th grade math. We've seen some struggle there and continue to see some struggle there. And so we need to take a look at that. High school is part of the TSI plan, an emphasis on data-informed decision-making. So back to your point about what about those students that aren't doing well? Really working with the staff in unpacking the numbers and, looking at the numbers are kind of behind the numbers and where kids are specifically struggling, getting down to the actual standard and the area that they need support. They may not need help in everything, but just specific things. And so helping them in a very targeted way, which also speaks to when I said earlier about if it's appropriate for a kid to retest, that we have the right supports in place for them to retest, but really making sure we understand and making informed decisions when it comes to the data. Using the CDTs, for example, or the new state test for Firefly. And that's, I think we're doing Firefly at the elementary level. So all levels we're doing that. And again, looking at the data and, working our way through it, attending different professional development opportunities to help teachers and administrators understand the data and be able to make those informed decisions.
Can I comment? Going back on the graph, the before with the blue, yellow, and green, it seems to me last year there were 2 or 3 grades that didn't even meet. So this looks pretty good to me.
You got it. Good eye. Yep. Absolutely.
If I can add to that before they move on to the next subject area, because it's confusing when you don't live in this data every year to remember what's the difference between PVAS and PSSA and Keystone and all that. And I'm not trying to dumb it down, but I'm not a super big data person. But PVAS, if you look at what it stands for, value added assessment. So that's just supposed to be the value added that an individual teacher had on students. When you're looking at just proficiency rates or percentage of students proficient, you're really comparing apples to oranges because you're looking at how last year's 6th graders did compared to this year's 6th graders. So the kids are different. You talk to any teacher, on any given year you have a strong class come through, a class that has some more challenges. So really, if you're going to compare proficiency rate, you really need to look at how last year's 5th graders did when they were in 4th grade, and to see if there was growth. What value-added assessment takes, the PVAS, and I'm not going to get into the methodology of it because it's really complicated, but essentially it's taking every single student and where they were the year before, and based on all the research from all the kids across the state of PA and data trends and everything, what would be a good amount of growth for that one individual kid to make in a given year? So it's, how many kids did you get from wherever their point A was to their point B? And so really, to me, I think all data is important. The value added data to me, really, if you're looking at what impact did our teachers have on students in a given year, that's where it comes from. When you see dips and gaps in overall proficiency, sometimes that leans more to, are there curriculum gaps? Are we not quite aligned somewhere, or so on? But when you're looking at the quality of our teachers and what you tend to see, what the research will show you is, if you start to see those blues in PVAS, you're a couple years away from starting to see those increases in your overall proficiency rates. So it's very promising, to your point, Kathleen, because it's showing that, I think it's showing our trajectory is going in the right way. Even though we'd all love to see 100% of our students proficient. But keep in mind, like for elementary, the state average is 41%. So 53% is pretty good. For the Keystone, I think it's 41% across the state as well. So the numbers don't look like, when you're equated to like a grade, you're thinking, oh, 53%, that's not very high. But when you're looking at what the state average is and so on, how many students, where typically students perform in large numbers on like a bell-shaped curve, you're kind of right on target there.
All right, let's talk English language arts. So looking at our achievement data, PSSA data, K to 8, you'll see a little bit of everything going on up there for us within ELA. At the elementary level, this first year, was the first year of online iPad testing for our elementary students. So they had never taken the assessment outside of paper pencil. And we were expecting somewhat of a dip. The state saw a decrease across elementary as well because they're pushing more districts to move in that direction. And so we've already started to work with, as Dr. Mann said, the Firefly assessment, which is PDE's math and ELA assessment. That's the closest to a PSSA type assessment that we'll see. That's all on the iPad. That's all online as well. And so we're already this year digging into that with students and helping to build their test taking skills. It's a very different set of strategies. When you have a paper, pencil, highlighter, scrap paper in front of you to straight iPad, when we're teaching students to annotate text, underline, circle keywords, right? So we're building those skills, and 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teachers have already begun to really shift to that new tool this year. And then at middle school, we held our own. We saw a little bit of a decline over the past couple of years, and so holding even at that middle school level was important just to get our bearings there. Middle school had been online for several years, and so that wasn't an issue necessarily for them. So we're continuing to dive into our curriculum and our assessment opportunities at the middle school as well.
And just so you're aware, the state's going to 100% online testing. It's not our decision to do that. The state's moving everything in that direction. I think this is the first, everything's on.
Yeah, everything's online.
So looking at the Keystone, again, just to point out the cohort difference. So this is a little different than last year's graph. Pretty much holding our own as well with the work we're doing there. Again, some of the things I spoke to earlier with the high school and looking at the data. I know that this year, math and ELA, for example, they've also made some modifications to the schedule a little bit in support of the students. There's co-teaching now taking place in more of the classrooms where we can do that. So we have some of that taking place in math and ELA as well. I mean, that's just not just an ELA thing. So pretty much, pretty stable. Want to see more growth, but it's stable for now.
And then we move to our PVAS data, and again, you're going to see the overwhelming majority of our grade levels in that dark blue, that well above. I want to just give a shout out to the 5th grade ELA teachers. It's our one grade level that broke the 5.44 growth index there, which is absolutely phenomenal. And so again, we're seeing individual grade levels, individual schools have really taken this data apart in writing their school-wide plans and creating their specific school data goals for their grade level teams. We've incorporated all of these pieces into those strategies as well. So our takeaways for ELA, one of the things as we tossed and turned the data, one of the areas that our students continually are struggling with is in that text-dependent analysis where they're actually deep diving into a text and they're able to determine some of the choices that the author makes in order to convey the main idea or the theme of that text. It's a really sophisticated skill, and we start working with that in 3rd grade. And so we've been spending a lot of time. I personally led professional learning with our 5th grade team to really dive into text analysis to build in more opportunities across the modern learning curriculum. We started with a TDA in September this year, getting the students in and exposed to that idea of how to really analyze text at a deeper level. We've also been focusing on increasing opportunities for our students to have those books in hands, texts in hands as much as possible. Some of that was the ESSER funds that the board had given us the approval to spend on text sets that support the science and the social studies connections in our interdisciplinary units, but having more kids in more texts, real books, books in their hands for more time. And then again, Mrs. Kapka will talk about this a little bit when we get to MTSS, but a big emphasis on small, flexible grouping. And that's the strategy that we've honed in on for our students who are not proficient. Really using our Dibbles data, our Acadience data to figure out exactly where that breakdown is in early literacy, and then making sure that students are still getting their grade level comprehension instruction, but they're also getting that really dedicated small group time for wherever they are on that literacy continuum. So if they're on a phonics issue, we want to make sure that they're getting regular intensive phonics support in a small group, in addition to, I want to take them out of that grade level comprehension, but we've been working all fall through our professional learning opportunities with our elementary teachers on designing those small groups to provide that intensive intervention.
I was reading, I don't know if you saw the article in today's paper on the PSSAs, and there was a complaint about the configuration of the literacy parts of it that they felt were inherent in the test to make it more challenging in all the wrong ways. I wondered if you had read that article.
I did. Was that Lancaster Online?
Yeah, it was in this morning's paper.
Didn't see it. I didn't see it.
I don't know if you have heard anything about complaints about the composition and of these tests. I've seen that before when especially in reading tests where sometimes the sample was so long or unnecessarily complex that it was difficult to get an accurate comprehension name. I didn't know if you had any input on that or not.
I'd be curious if it was about that text-dependent analysis standard. I'm very interested in that because that continually statewide continues to be the weakest standard across the entire state. It is a highly complex process, especially for third, fourth, and fifth graders to get a hold of. And it takes a lot of scaffolding, breaking it down into really small steps to get there. I mean, we're asking our students to be able to determine, hey, the author used this word because they were trying to convey a theme of friendship, and these words put together explain. I mean, it's a complex task, so I will be very interested in reading
Well,
that.
I know there used to be that problem one time with the SATs, where the samples you read were so long that it ate up all the time, even if you were a proficient reader. And I've always had a problem with the composition of the literacy. I just wondered, with this complaint from, I forget what school district they interviewed, if you saw the same thing. I don't know if you get to see much of the test.
It's like strictly prohibited, but they do give us samplers. So every year the state will put out sample items that you can use with students, you can use in classrooms, and so we do rely heavily on those. But yeah, there are times where students have two texts that they're reading, and then they're comparing the two texts as part of their text-dependent analysis. And it can definitely be, we have had some students test 4-5 hours. I mean, they are grinding it out on those ELA sections.
Okay, so kind of just detail. When you get the numbers back, it says, okay, punctuation's a deficiency or reading comprehensive. Like you get those numbers, even though the parents don't see that, you have
By
more.
standard.
Okay.
Yes, yep.
So
We have
so
a
we know where-
breakdown by, they're called assessment anchors, which are kind of a couple standards bundled together. And then we have the ability to really break that down and see where those issues are. And that's how we knew text-dependent analysis was our lowest.
That's what I
lowest
figured,
one.
but I just don't know.
Yep. And then those are exactly the curriculum fixes then that we do. You got it. That's the improvement cycle right there. So then with science, we don't have a whole lot here because this is our first year using the STEEL standards was the first PSSA assessment with the new standards. And so we actually didn't get data back from PDE around the new assessment. Year one, it was the kind of pilot year for the test, and so we don't have aggregated data that was provided back to the districts. There's not public data available in the Future Ready Index for science. Spring of 2026 will be the first STEELS Keystone Biology Assessment. So everything science assessment-wise is basically a restart. From here on out, next year's presentation will show you year one of our data because it's not even worth comparing to the old data because the standards have changed so significantly. It's one of the biggest shifts that we've seen in recent years around how we teach and what we teach in our science classrooms. So think of that as a blank slate for next year, restart, and move forward. And then I had to put a note about pre-K in there. So I wanted to show you our, this kindergarten class's fall data, our DIBBLS data, that's our early literacy assessment, and then our Acadience is our early numeracy assessment. And so just a quick snapshot here of our students who were enrolled for a full year. So we took the students who were with us a whole year in pre-K. Students who hit the benchmarks compared to those who did not have any CV pre-K, may have had other pre-K, may have had other experiences, may not have had anything. I think what's really significant to note here is if you recall the pre-K counts program, our students who are within 300% at or below the federal poverty line. And so we're looking at students who potentially have some complexities outperforming the all group, which is exactly what this program is intended to do. And so our focus now is maintaining those gains through the rest of the year and then into early elementary. That is the difficult piece for a lot of pre-K programs, carrying those gains through into first grade.
So looking at major curriculum items and the process that we go through to make those decisions, we start with the district mission and vision. We want to make sure that we are supporting that and that, that fundamentally the decisions that we make are rooted in the mission and vision. And you'll see that as we go through this.
So coming back to those district demographics, so how do the three of us go about determining what our budget is, determining what's coming up on the horizon? How do we make these decisions for major curricular items? We start with that vision and mission, and then we look at our demographics. We look at the students and the families who are in our classrooms every day. And so this is really a crucial step for us because as we've been emphasizing, you heard Dr. Mann say, we're the third highest in some of these diverse demographics across Lancaster County, and that all factors into our planning and our decision making. When you have students who are experiencing economic insecurity, housing insecurity, who language might be a barrier, they come with some more complexities, and so those are things that we have to make adjustments for. We have to plan for individualized opportunities outside of that one-size-fits-all, right? What we know in Conestoga Valley in 2025 is that a one-size-fits-all approach no longer works and no longer serves us. And so as we look at these initiatives and we look at our next steps, acknowledging and really seeing the diversity of our student body is a critical piece in that process and into our planning. Again, going back to Diana's point, we have a lot of students with a lot of different needs, and so we need to have a maybe wider tool belt. Is that a thing? Do we want a wider tool belt? We need to have more tools in our toolkit to address all of those different needs of our students.
Bigger box.
Bigger toolbox. There we go. There's the mechanic talking. There we go.
All right. And so, as we look at our district comprehensive plan, we look at, how does that fit into what we're doing and the direction that it is taking us in this 3-year process. As you know, that this is a living and breathing document, so as we go through this each year, we do make adjustments to it based on, how things are progressing. If we perhaps are maybe falling behind in a particular area, we'll make some adjustments to make sure that we can bring that up or so forth. one of the key pieces to all this is that you're not chasing the latest fad, so that it is rooted in what we're doing, in the vision, and that, like when we say about staying the course, there's, I don't know if you'd be surprised or not, but the amount of stuff that we get, advertisements and things, and say, oh, this is the next greatest thing, or you need this to do this, and okay, but why can't we, we need to stay the course and make sure that when we make a decision, that it is rooted in, that it's informed, and so forth.
Dr. Hartman, if you could go back, I don't want to lose Diana's point because it's so important. What are we doing for the students who are not proficient, right? And so in that district comprehensive plan, that's why we have an entire goal dedicated to this idea of the multi-tiered systems of support, the MTSS framework. That framework is really the roadmap to support struggling learners. That's the framework that says, all right, if a student is not responding to those core tier 1 instructional strategies, are they getting small group interventions that are aligned to their needs? Have they been then, has their data been looked at by the advanced tiers team to create a more intensive, maybe they're going with the reading support teacher, the instructional support teacher to get even more targeted supports in place. And then if needed, special education, ESL services along the way. So that MTSS framework is such a focal point of how we are supporting that diverse group of learners we were just talking about, and students who may not be proficient yet. Utilizing that, anchoring those data points, consistently looking at progress and determining if we're not seeing 6 weeks, if we're not seeing progress with a particular intervention, we know we need to turn that intervention up, we need to do something different, we need to keep looking at their data to fine-tune the plan for that student even more. So really critical piece in moving students to proficiency.
Yeah, I think another example that at the secondary level, more at the high school level, would be looking at those students that are high basic or high below basic, and seeing what work needs to be done with them. They're just sitting right there, and they may need just a little bit to push them over the top. And so looking at the data and the information that we get back from the state on the standards, and saying, all right, well, where is Don Mann? He's missing in this particular area here. Well, we can put the emphasis there rather than kind of just a general overview of it. Be very specific in the support that we give to the students. So breaking those numbers down so you have below basic and basic, but you can also look at, like, all right, where's the high basic? Those kids that are sitting right there, and what's keeping them from going over the top.
At the high school level, do you look at their career path that they're looking at, or how focused you get on certain deficiencies?
Well, part of it is when you look at the Act 158, and you look at a thing called 339, when you're looking at the students' career paths and so forth, that's part of it. But the path of least resistance for most students is passing the test. Right. And then as it breaks down, what the state had provided us are tools to help students get there that may be more appropriate for them versus, for example, career. Like you may get into a career focus of something like that, or earning credentials that are nationally certified or recognized credentials in a particular area for students, again, which may be more appropriate for them. We also are looking at, as we reevaluate and examine our graduation requirements at the high school and so forth, is looking at embedding a lot of this stuff in courses so that, for example, the project that students may be able to do if they need it as part of one of those pathways, well, just embedding that in a course that they're just naturally doing that has perhaps maybe a career focus on it already that can lead them in that direction. So it's yes and no. I mean,
All right, so we're still getting to how we determine major curricular items. So we look at, no, you're good. We look at our mission and vision. We check our comprehensive plan, right? Our comprehensive plan then is guided by our demographics, which now takes us to what's the roadmap? How do we get there? That's our profile in our instructional model. And you've seen this instructional model so many times now. And what we like to say is we have been super clear since the instructional model was unveiled before I came to CV in 2020. This path has been outlined, so there are no surprises. Everyone knows the steps we're taking, the moves we're making to bring more students into proficiency, right? It's those three big areas. And so where we, the three of us, when we're looking at what's coming up next year, we come back to our instructional model and we say, okay, where are we on our roadmap? What have we accomplished? What have we embedded in our system? What's next on the horizon? And so we're going to share with you some of those major anticipated curriculum expenses and items that we see for the 26-27 school year. We're the group that gets to kick off the budgeting process and give you a little bit of a preview of what's coming for us next year with curriculum and instruction. So Mrs. Schaefer is going to start with the first area of the instructional model, positive school climate.
Just to think about why positive school climate is important, it basically lays the foundation to remove all the barriers that are getting in the way of kids to maximize all this great curriculum and all that great instruction that's happening. So that's why we really focus on that here, because in order to really benefit, maximally benefit from what's happening in the classroom, you need to have the classroom ready to go. You need it to be positive, you need it to be exciting. You need to have kids wanting to be engaged. You need kids in the classroom. You need attendance rates to be high. You need kids not in the classroom and not in the office. So that's why we focus on some of these areas. This isn't nearly all the things that we do in order to foster those positive school climates, but these are some of the big areas that cost money as part of what we're presenting tonight. So, we've talked a lot about PBIS, positive behavior. So we use rewards for that, both in the supplies, but also in an online PBIS rewards program. And so the cost for those two things are there. So the PBIS rewards is about $13,000, and then the supplies that keep the program running are over $12,000. And then of course we have Character Strong, which is our SEL, our social emotional learning curriculum that we work through K-8, and then the high school develops their own character lessons and trajectory on what they want their kids to do in the high school by month. So Character Strong is really the only piece to that costs money, and that's the K-8 program, and that's almost $5,000. And then, of course, the professional learning that goes along with those areas equal about, $1,250.
So in the next area of the instructional model, the relevant and rigorous learning experiences, this is where you see the bulk of the curriculum and instruction budget for us. And so the only new anticipated brand new expense is that Classroom Mosaic app. We talked about that last week. We do not anticipate any other new resources, programs, items for next year. We talked about staying the course. We talked about not chasing the next fad, right? And so this is really in this area. Classroom Mosaic would be the only new piece. We do anticipate still needing some support from IU13. We did reduce that budget number by almost half, by about $15,000, bringing on our Director of Curriculum and Instruction. We're going to be able to utilize Dr. Galbraith. There are still some areas like STEELS, Tech Ed that we do anticipate needing some additional IU content experts to be a part of with us. IXL is new on this one. So 3 years ago, we used our ESSER funds to pay for the IXL license. That contract is now up. So this is the first time you will see the IXL in the general fund. And that's one of our core embedded learning tools, really one that we use to help differentiate, help identify skills gaps, and do some really intentional work with students there. So that is an add back into the general fund. Then overall, our assessment and our data platforms, again, nothing has changed there at this time. And then really the high price tag is the curriculum software, the online resources. So this ranges from everything from our EduPlanet curriculum warehouse to our online Desmos software that we use at the middle school. It's a little bit of all of our learning programs that we utilize. This could be some of our World Book online tools, a little bit of everything there. Leadership development, we do still anticipate setting aside some of that, the funds to support our principals, assistant principals, and directors. And then we do anticipate continuing to work with Devapar consultants. Again, we significantly reduced this amount. Our last agreement with them came in at about $75,000, so we're significantly planning to reduce those supports. However, our consultant there, Dr. Sneath, does a ton of work with our school improvement teams, the deep dive data analysis. Dr. Sneath is leading that with our principals to really design those effective school-wide plans. So that's what we're anticipating for next year. Nothing new, a lot of reductions, but we do have to bring that IXL into the general fund, and that feels like a heavier lift there because it was ESSER funded in the past.
The last category is flexible learning environments, and two areas I really just focus on is the blended learning and the purposeful and strategic integration of technology. This is actually one of these areas that we are going to look at changing and updating some of the language in this particular area, just because of how things have changed over time. Like blended learning means a variety of things anymore to a variety of people. So looking at updating things like that. However, as far as the main intent and the focus here, and you're looking at CVVA and the software that goes along with that, the IU Student-Centered Learning Academy and the cost that go along with that. The technology that Mr. McGraw will talk about next time, as far as his budget, obviously he's a big part of all this. It moves through the technology integration and so forth. And then I know Dr. Hartman's been chairing the AI task force and have some ideas there as far as what that potentially would look like as a cost. There's a whole host of things out there that districts can take advantage of or leverage or start to leverage. And so, Dr. Hartman, I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I could just real briefly. So, and this is all why we put TBD there. We're considering, with all the trends with AI and AI integration, the more we've been studying it, a lot of the tools, there's what they call freemium versions. Anybody can go online and create a real quick account and get a free ChatGPT account or, Gronk, whatever. Every day there's new AI platforms popping up. For that data protection component and for some of the features and for we're looking like there's probably value in, as a district, us determining a couple AI tools that we want to really invest in and say these are the ones we're using. We're getting accounts for, whether it's like Magic AI, School AI. There's a couple that are catered to K-12 education, especially if we're going to want students to explore with AI, where there's a data privacy component to them. Even though it's AI, they're not. It's. And Adam could probably use more technical terminology, but really there's intellectual property concerns when you're putting student information or student created content into an AI tool, and then that is being used to teach itself, the tool. You're seeing some case law and stuff out there now about that really being kind of a theft of intellectual property when you do that. So when you have a paid version of some of these tools, there's some guarantees that come along that they're not using your content, your data, your information that you're putting in AI to really build the AI or to continue for the AI to learn and to evolve. So it's kind of like unknown territory type stuff, but a lot of the legal guidance is towards adopting tools that would involve having licensing agreements and so on. So we're not there yet, but we're looking at that. We're looking at what that would offset. I think long term, there's probably cost savings with going that route if you think of what you can use AI to create for you versus having to go out and purchase. So all unknown things to us right now that we're sort of exploring.
So that the last couple of slides then just build on the discussion last week around the Classroom Mosaic app. I had shared with you that I wanted to give you that preview last week, but really the Classroom Mosaic tool being used to implement our new Learning Walk system that we anticipate to get up and running this spring. Really focusing in on now, we've invested a lot of time, money, personnel, effort, resources into those three big areas from the instructional model. And so we want to know, to what extent are we seeing what we expect to see in our classrooms, given that we have put so much focus in these big areas. And so that's really what our learning walk set out to do. The next slide just gives you a little bit of an overview of that timeline. We'll be doing some piloting this spring, finalizing those protocols, and doing some trial rounds of the learning walk, so that in 26-27 we would have a full learning walk system up and running. We talked about that last week. We'd be able to bring you some data. So that last slide, Dr. Hartman, gives you a screenshot of what that classroom mosaic app could potentially look like. So when we show you the analytics that are going to come right from that live, as soon as you walk out of a classroom and you enter that information, we're going to be able to use it to really look at trends and themes across a school, across a grade level, a department, across the K-12 system if we need to. So very customizable for us based on what we're using it for here in CV. So I wanted to just add that information and give you a little screenshot so you can see what that looks like. So that concludes our data, and then using that cycle of improvement with the data to determine the focus areas and the major items for next year. We'd like to give you that preview in the fall as we continue to build out those plans and the rest of the budget through the school year. So questions for us?
I have a couple. One, with the homeless numbers being down, I would love to know why. Because we've also, like with partnerships with Seeds and some of the other things that we do, is it because of them? And it also, I'm full aware, it could also be, you may have had several homeless members of the same household that averaged out. I know it's hard to get those numbers because a lot of kids don't want to say that they are. So, but is that also a reason? Like maybe some kids are and they're just not saying that they are. I'm just curious because that's a significant drop. So love to hear back on that one. The other question is, so with all the colored dots and that data review, so we've seen those numbers I've seen them a couple years in the running. And I always am left with that kind of like wanting more thing. Not necessarily from give me a full breakdown, but for example, like the 7th grade class. I would love to see, since it's all of the colored dots are based on a law of averages, correct? So it takes the entire 7th grade and it averages it out, and that average is coming up as below or doesn't meet. So I would love to see, just to give us the board kind of an idea of what does that really mean, even if you just took the 7th grade class and said, okay, where were they last year? Where are they next year when those reports come out? And then what is the breakdown for each colored category even? How many were in red? How many were in the 2 greens? How many were in the blues? But just to kind of give us an idea, because that's the data that you guys are looking at on the back end that we don't get to see. I don't want it broken down for everything, but just a snapshot into, okay, we're focusing on 7th grade because that one performed in red for both categories, English and math. So if you look at that and you go, okay, break that down for us as a board so we can see, and then also start to see those numbers hopefully start to grow as they move. Even if that's the one grade we're just going to track in these presentations for the next little bit, I'd just love to see a little bit more of a simplified version of how that progresses instead of just, okay, we see them in red again, and maybe it moved a little bit on the scale, but I don't know what that means.
Absolutely, and we can show you some. When I say we toss the data, right, we have that data. We have the growth data by different groups of students. So we have, was it the advanced students? Were they the ones who didn't hit where they were projected to be? Was it, how do we do with our lowest 33% of performers? Were they the ones? And so that's exactly, when we put that in through different layers within the system, so happy to put together a kind of portfolio and how we,
just kind of like snapshot. I think it was like a
analysis.
snapshot, kind of
Absolutely.
like take one grade.
Absolutely.
What is the review that you guys do? Would just love to understand your process a little bit more. And I think it also builds some confidence, because when we just see the law of averages, the board goes like, okay, we're not seeing a lot of movement in the needle.
Right.
How do we see? I mean, we are. Don't get me wrong. We absolutely are. That's 15% is huge strides. But then you see that one grade, and it's natural for the board to be like, what's going on with 7th grade? So show us a little bit of more of that, if that one thing.
Sure.
Are there any crossovers with IXL, particularly when it comes to the math stuff? Are you able to see I know it might be harder because is IXL mainly elementary or is that used across the board? Great. So is there any data-driven resource exploration on IXL that trends to that? I'm just curious about that crossover.
That's a great question. So one of the things we do as part of our MTSS system is at the elementary level, we look at all of our elementary district data together, and then the buildings look at their school level data compared to the district. Then the teachers look at their classroom data compared to the school, so one of the tools that we specifically look at is the IXL numbers. And actually, at the elementary level of all of our assessment tools, IXL and the new Firefly assessment were the two that correlated the most closely with where students ended up on PSSA. Wasn't perfect, and there were some anomaly grades here and there. But overall, when we saw students who were meeting the benchmarks in IXL, we closely saw that happening then in their PSSA proficiency. And so we've done that. Mr. Ludwig is our resident data guru at Brownstown, and so he actually plotted every single student at Brownstown and was looking for some of those correlations. So we were finding some similarities. That is one of our tools that's helping us. Can't say it's direct, I can't say it's perfect, but it is tracking in the same direction. It's been a helpful tool for us.
Very cool.
When you look at our district assessment map, we have that K-12 now, and that's becoming more formalized. All these assessments are noted in there. When we do like the snapshot of like for IXL, for example. And so we capture that data, and then we look at that Firefly data, and we can actually, as she was saying with Mr. Ludwig, we can pull those data color-coded and everything right beside each other. So you can see that. So if there are anomalies, or you're thinking something's not quite right, I know this kid can do more than this, and so forth. So it allows you to pull that together so you can line all kinds of stuff up, like from PSSA to CDTs to the, all in one report, and you can look across and look at what are those concerns or growth areas that you, so there's a lot you can do.
That's very cool.
Mr. Gensel's braver than I am. I'm always afraid if I ask that sort of question, he'll actually send me the data and I will drown in it. I know it's challenging to try to take that data and find the core of what you can learn from it. And I appreciate the effort.
I know this has been a long presentation, but a couple of comments. Mark, you made a good comment about the homeless data. That data is probably some of the hardest data to know if you have 100% accuracy on it or not, because for the same reasons you mentioned, we know those numbers aren't 100% accurate. We know there's students parents don't fill out the paperwork for McKinney-Vento and all different stuff. But I think some of the efforts of some of our community partnerships have paid off dividends. But I also think there's been some efforts with some of the tools and some of the other efforts that we've explained to the board over the last year or so about really trying to get a better handle on our students and keeping better grasp. And to be frank, we've had some students who were kind of like on our books for a while, who we went back in and realized they shouldn't be homeless status anymore. They've been living, they found permanent home, residency in a different district, and they kind of have moved off. And we've been trying to work with our team to better recognize that. Not that we're not trying to get rid of kids that we want here, but ultimately, there are enrollment rules to follow and so on. So we've been trying to clean up some of that a little bit as well.
Well, and at the end of the day, if you can't find one specific thing, then it has to be all of the efforts together, right? So it was just that idea, just because that was a big shift. So plus, of course, if something is working really well, we'd love to know about it.
Right.
Like, hey, we got a massive win, 10 families got placed into homes because of an initiative with seeds or something like that. Then we'd be like, well, that's awesome. That's what you want to hear. Yeah. So, no, I appreciate it for sure.
Diana had mentioned about the high school and whether or not we're factoring in career. And I just think worth mentioning, we mentioned the Future Ready Index a lot this evening. That's the state dashboard that used to be the school performance profile. It used to be where you could go on and get all, they just call it the Future Ready Index. But that we do, similar, tonight was focused on academic achievement, but the similar data is reported on there of like how many students completed internships for us at the high school level, how many students completed a rigorous course of study, which is either an advanced placement course or dual enrollment, how many students earned an industry recognized credential. The state values that data equally. That's why they changed it to the school or to the Future Ready Index. It's no more like, oh, this is only weighted this amount. It's presented as a dashboard because schools want us to look at that data as much as we're looking at PSSA scores and Keystone scores anymore. We didn't include that this evening because I think Ms. Upton has a presentation coming up in the near future that will highlight some of that data on our career initiatives a little more.
Thank
We're happy
you.
to stay and talk about data and curriculum
I was hoping to make this,
instruction
get
all
this to
night.
60, we're almost to 60 minutes for this presentation. So
You gotta
we
cut
can,
us off, you know it. Thank you.
Oh, I did want to say, I'm glad your beard's coming back in, Don. I feel much more comfortable when you have a beard.
I lost my way for a little bit.
we'll make sure that's noted in the minutes.
At this point in the meeting, we have time if any of the public would like to address one of the agenda items. Is there anyone here from CVEA to speak or from other employee groups? If not, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have we have items A through G. Are there any questions or concerns on any of the items on the consent agenda? If not, I would take a motion to approve it. Oh, come on, somebody.
I move to approve the consent agenda items A through G.
I second.
Okay, a roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Fisher?
Aye.
Mr. Talley?
Aye.
Mrs. Kapka? Mr. Gensel? Mr. Eby?
Aye.
Ms. Trowbridge? Mrs. Groff?
Aye. It passes unanimously. And we will move on to the action discussion agenda, and we start with a request to approve the BBA grants. Mrs. Myers.
She had to leave to go back to work, so I'm going to be presenting.
Okay.
tonight. I'm Shannon Sloan, the secretary of the BAA.
Like rats leaving a sinking ship.
Okay, better? Okay. We have two grants that we're going to be reviewing. The first is for girls lacrosse. They're asking for 25 heavy waterproof jackets for the girls to wear on the sidelines. The quote that they're asking for is quote number 1. It's $1,800 from H&L Team Sales. And those would stay with the program then, after they're done using them this year. And then the second quote that we're reviewing is the Boys Basketball Booster Club is asking for an iPad Pro. And they were asking for the quote number 3 for $949. Are there any questions on those? Yeah.
I don't have any questions about these specific grants, but do you know where your balance is right now?
We are still sitting at close, I think, $200,000. We are trying to go through that money with different grants, like a community BAA grant for replacing some of the equipment in the concession stands. So we're reviewing that stuff with Ken to make sure that we're doing the right things, purchasing the right equipment. Shelley also met with Frank last week, I believe, to go over some different things that we can utilize some of that money for. And I believe that we're going to be changing bylaws coming up soon to get more booster clubs access to the money.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
We had Adele, Mr. Hawkins, myself, and Shelley had a meeting last week where we're looking at, they have some big ticket items. There'll be some more grants coming your way to try to, by design, get that fund balance down a little bit, but also we're looking at a little bit of a redesign in how, in their operations. So with Frank being new to the district, we wanted him to get the lay of the land a little bit, but some exciting ideas for some grants that I think are coming in the near future that'll help multiple sports, not just in activities, not just one or two.
Yeah.
And I know where Mrs. Groff is going. I know where you're going with the balance, et cetera, but with the new athletic director coming on board, I think there were some things that was hung up a little bit in the past. There's one grant that could eliminate probably 30% of the balance, so there's some big ticket items that are gonna be coming, so.
It's been a
we hear you.
while while that built up, and I think it's time to apply it
Yeah,
usefully, yeah.
It gets so complex because, is it district capital funded? Is it BAA funded? Should it be split 50-50 from that aspect? So those conversations are being happening because there's some of these big ticket items.
There is, as is appropriate, a mix of business, of district business, of fundraising, and that's as it should be. We just need to make sure that the balance is appropriate
Sure.
for what their needs are. But
Yeah.
we certainly appreciate the work of the BAA, believe me. If anyone doesn't mind, I am going to hold votes for one vote in this section of the agenda.
You're gonna, what was that? You're gonna, what?
I'm going to hold it so we can vote on them all at once.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay? We will vote on it, I promise you tonight.
Do you want to vote on it now?
No, we
No?
have 4 items in this. I want to put them all together.
You want to put them all together?
Yep. The next item is the budget update. This ought to be interesting. Have you had time to review this well?
Oh, I was a cat on hot tin roof waiting for PASBO to come out with all the details for this. I literally couldn't wait. It's not that I'm an accounting nerd or anything, but it was just, I wanted to know what was the impact for us.
Well, I would tell you the one thing I was looking for was that money that Mr. Talley and I both thought was coming when we voted for the lower tax rate.
The Ready to Learn adequacy.
Yeah, the
supplement.
other half of that.
Yeah.
I
well-
was confident it would show up.
Well, it did.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it did, luckily. Very fortunate. So that was the area where I was concerned about, and quite frankly, looking forward to future year state budgets. I know I'm sounding gloom and doom, but with what all happened this year with the 138-day delay and the politics involved, I will not be surprised going forward that we're going to have more challenges with the state budget. And you know, as Dr. Hartman's mentioned before, when in some of our discussions and other meetings, they did a lot of funding into the adequacy supplement, which is money that they don't have to have a hold harmless unit. They can reduce that going forward. So if you put that into the basic ed funding formula, then there's, you know, a hold harmless that you don't get less than what you did the year before, but.
Yeah, I understand that way. They figure they have more control. What I found interesting was when this whole thing started, the governor wanted 51 billion.
Yes.
And the legislator wanted 49. And I looked at that as 49 to 51. Well, that's 50's right in the middle.
Right,
Which is where they ended up.
yeah, after all this time, yes.
I could have told them, but nobody called me.
You should have called them.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
You got a hotline into the governor's office, so I'm sure all of you have seen the excerpts of this first slide here, and what I really want to focus on too is the cyber tuition reform. But, and what it looks like as far as what we received on the next slide is our 24, 25 actual subsidies that we got for basic ed, special ed, the Ready to Learn Foundation, that was like that standard 348,000 that we got every year. And then the adequacy supplement, and then also in 24, 25, we received $107,000 to help offset our cyber tuition costs. That was a little cynicism there because of our cyber tuition costs, 1.7 million, 107,000 didn't do too much. But anyway, in February, when the governor proposed his budget, you can see the numbers there did not include any cyber funding for school districts at all. So we were, very cautious, conservative, conservatively optimistic, I think is one of the words that I had mentioned back in the spring when we were moving through our budget process. We were on target pretty much with the basic ed, special ed, but we only budgeted 50% of the adequacy supplement that the governor was proposing, hoping that we would get it, but concerned that we might not. So the state budget came through, and they did fund the adequacy supplement, as we mentioned, fully. So really, our net advantage here is $725,000, but again, we had budgeted a deficit knowing that we might get some of that $700,000. So the cyber tuition reform, they will talk about how much they're estimating that it's going to save school districts, or their budget to reform cyber tuition. It's going to be X number $1 million of savings. Well, it's not coming from the state. That's going to be reducing the tuition cost that we pay to the cyber. So it's not a state-funded advantage for meeting their budget, but instead it's reducing our costs. So I ran through the calculation. There's not detailed guidance like I would prefer that there would be to be able to present a number to you. We're waiting to get more detailed guidance from PDE, but PASBO kind of laid some of it out for us. And running the numbers through what I believe is going to be the final calculation for 2025-26, if this is retroactive, this tuition charge change is retroactive to July 1, it would save us $200,000 a year. If it's prorated as of November 12th, when the budget was approved, we'd save about $125,000 for the current year. So I'm certainly not going to dispute being able to save money like that. I was certainly hoping that tuition reform would be more significant than that for us.
Well, if that's what it is, will we just wait until what we really owe matches what we've paid so far?
Oh, there would be adjustments coming through on the cyber tuition bills, and I'll be reviewing all of those in great detail, just to ensure that they're calculating it correctly. So moving ahead and looking at what does this mean for us? Some of these numbers might look familiar to you. Our budgeted revenues was $93.9 million. Our budgeted expenditures were $95 million. We budgeted a planned deficit of $1.2 million, but getting that $710,000 in for the adequacy supplement dropped our deficit down to $479,000. Now, again, cyber reform, if we get the full amount retroactive change in the calculation, that would be a $200,000 savings. That drops us down closer to than $275,000. Still a deficit and still a lot of challenges for us coming up in the next couple of years. Again, number one, gloom and doom with not being able to anticipate clearly what the state is going to be doing. It's interesting. On Wednesday, I've been invited by Dr. Daniker. Some of you may remember him. He's been a teacher here and an administrator. He's an adjunct professor at Millersville University, and he asked me last year to come out, and again this year, to teach 2 of his classes about school finance. And I'm glad that the budget got passed before I go out. But one of the questions was, how do you move forward with the budget when you don't have the state numbers? It's just, you find your voices, it's just very frustrating. Anyway, some of the challenges we're going to continue to have is our Act 1 index is going to continue to decrease. But, again, we have challenges with the continued cyber tuition costs. Salaries are locked in for teachers at 4%. Benefits, insurance costs are projected to go up about another 7% this year. Interest rates have been going down for the past year and a half. Unfortunately, we're going to be losing interest income revenue due to those decreases. Special ed costs continue to increase. That's all everywhere, all throughout the county and the state. And then just a continued increase in cost due to inflations and tariffs. And then I always like to keep this last slide in mind. This causes some sleepless nights for me, but just to keep in mind that our debt service, again, the district looks great. The campuses look wonderful. Leola's coming around, looking really, really good. But it all costs money, and we've got $8.4 million in debt service. So just to know that's one of those costs that we cannot miss, but have to account for. So, quick update. Any questions?
If you paid attention, not just to the K-12 part of the state budget, but the overall state budget, one area I have that I'm concerned about that I think will have ramifications for schools is even though you saw a slight increase in the percentage of funding to K-12 education, one area that took a huge hit with the state budget is human services. So mental health services, counseling, all of that was really, they were the big loser in the state budget. So we all know where that onus falls when other providers can't provide those services. The expectation is on the school. So I have a feeling some of those costs, the expectation will be that they fall to public ed. That's just my looking into my magic ball there, predicting that. But yeah, I think there's definitely some promising things in the budget, K-12. I think we were pleased with some of the things, some of the cyber reform. One thing Adele didn't mention, that's not really fiscal, but with the cyber reform, they also included some measures that put more of the onus on the cyber charters for some of the data tracking and recording and making connections with families and ensuring it's where in the past that was on us to catch if a family wasn't living in the district anymore, so on. So there's some promising things in there. I would just caution everybody, even though it looks good, 4 months later, I think we were at a point mentally where we were just happy for anything. Yeah. But when you look at it, you can share the increases, but, yes, a 2.7% increase across the board for special education. Our special education costs are rising way more than 2.7%. So the gap is still widening between district costs and what's being funded by the state for special education. So that's my soapbox and my public service announcement for the evening on the budget. But I don't want to be all doom and gloom. There's some positive in there, but there's also still some concerning numbers. With the adequacy, keep in mind that's not bonus money. That's money that out of the fair funding lawsuits, the court said PDE owes public schools. So it looks really good that we're increasing it by that amount. They're just giving us what the courts have said they were underfunding us for years and years. So my soapbox on that is I wish that came through basic ed funding and not the Ready to Learn block grant, because then at least we'd be guaranteed that amount in the next year. So we got to be cautious with that, and I know we budget that way. So. Yeah.
Okay, that's all I have on this.
Thank you. Appreciate your work. Now, are you going to talk to us about this rental fee waiver?
Yes. So in all the years that I've been here, we've haven't had requests to waive rental fees until this year. And we've had several of them, 3 of them.
But these are from groups that we don't usually have participate.
Yeah. This request is from the West Earl Police Department. They would like to use the Brownstown Gymnasium to have some training later on in December. The rental fee for the Police Department would be $65, so we're requesting that we waive that fee.
This is for their own training?
Yeah, their own training, yes.
Any questions or concerns in approving this?
This is on a non-school day, correct?
Okay.
Yeah, it's
this just for one day?
It's from 3 to 5, and I believe it is December 6th, and that's a Saturday, so we're good.
This is for one day?
One day.
Okay. I'll hold that along with our other votes.
Thank you.
The last one is approval for the first reading of district policies that were listed. I had a concern with 122. That was, and it doesn't say that, but that wasn't just meant to be to address gender issues. It was for any challenge to the extracurricular code. I preferred the language we had before that specifically talked about any challenge and included the parents and student. I think that's something appropriate, that, you know, everyone be in there. It does keep in the concerns that were important to us. But I'd like
Can you
that-
cite specific, I'm not sure what policy, where you're,
I think
Are
it's
you-
120, is it 122, which is the one for extracurricular?
2 is extracurricular.
Yeah. And it talks about the superintendent and the athletic director and the principal.
no, not that policy, yeah, that would be
I have the
policy,
wrong one.
yes.
That's very possible.
Because we specifically left that language in policy 123. That's why I was confused if they,
But it doesn't include the parents or student. If I'm correct.
Are you talking about where it talks about Pennsylvania, the PIAA defers to the school district for decisions regarding student participation in athletics, and the decisions are made jointly by superintendent, principal.
There we go. Yeah, that's where I am.
so it's right there where it's highlighted green.
This isn't just for PIAA, this is for all challenges. And I'd like.
Well, interscholastic sports only refers to PIAA sanctioned sports. That's what, yeah.
Which is, so, yeah, you're saying 123 is specific for interscholastic athletics.
Okay. I still feel that the parents.
So I'll defer to Diana and Julie, who are on the policy committee. There were, because I want to put you on the spot. But when, this was the policy when we reviewed it, the recommended language, but from PSBA removed this language because it wasn't PSBA developed language. And that's the one I caught later. We sent it back out, but because my understanding was the board fought pretty hard and when this was brought up before to keep that in there. So we went against PSBA's recommendation to put that back in there for our recommendation. So that it should not, it's not different than what was in the previous 123.
Okay. All right, thank you. Does anyone else have any concerns? If not, I can take a motion to approve agenda item 6A, C, and D.
Before that, I just want to make a comment. We just, within the last several days, received a PNN update from PSBA for several of these policies, which we knew was going to happen right when we updated them. I think 3 or 4 of them have recommended updates. I'll be in full honesty, I haven't had time to really look at if they're any different than what we updated.
Are you going to pull those when it comes to second
So
reading?
I was going to look at them. If there are significant changes prior to second reading, we would
Okay.
share those out and then pull them. But I can't even off the top of my head tell you which 3 they were.
Would you highlight so we know what's
Yeah.
missing?
As of now, we're not recommending any changes to them, but we're going to look at those moving forward. So we could if we needed to make changes or make recommendations prior to second reading, we could.
Yeah, okay. But I will take the motion to approve agenda item 6A, C, and D.
Motion to approve agenda items 6A, C, and D.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? If not, they are all approved. We are down to the information agenda. Any questions on the finance and operations report? The curriculum report? Is there anything with federal funds, Dr. Hartman?
Nothing new. They should hopefully start flowing now. Yeah.
And administrative policy review, I'm not sure what you want in that.
No updates.
No updates, okay. Then we'll go on to board reports. The IU, again, is late getting me any sort of report, so I'm afraid I don't have much for you. There was nothing really outstanding in that. The PSBA report is as it's listed. And the Lancaster County Academy, the only thing I wanted to add or bring to your attention, the Academy did not meet, but I forwarded a request from them to the district, and I will quote from it. We're building a roster of local employers to host one-day, 8-hour in-person job shadows for Academy students. This supports our school-to-work model, helping students explore real career, and they're asking for us to share names of businesses. This pretty well closes the circle between the district's work in connecting with the community, the IU's work, which is a huge amount of work with business. They have 200 businesses they work with, and the academy. So I forwarded that, and that went to Mel Upton, if I'm correct, to work with them, to help them in any way we can. Well, CTC report, there's nothing we can get from Mr. Hurst. Construction team update.
Just what's listed on that report from Leola, it's coming along, it's nice to see the back paved. It does
Okay.
cost money, but it's money well spent, it's good, so Leola's coming along swimmingly.
Okay, and as far as other reports, I did have one from CVEF, but Dr. Hartman already mentioned the extra give that's coming up and the grants that they've sent out. This is usually the smaller grants this time of year, but and if anyone questions, they do not give grants to everyone that applies. They're really very careful to see it, and I think they're working with the district now to try to coordinate the kind of grants they look at with the district's needs and goals. Okay. That takes us to public comments. Is there anyone in the public that would like to make a comment in general? Are there any board comments or concerns? Well, I would like to add a few. Just to mention what's coming up, the senior breakfast is tomorrow. Shop with the Buckskin's coming up. In case you didn't realize it, Thanksgiving is coming up. And of course, our next meeting in December will be our reorganizational meeting. I want to take this time to make some general comments. This is my last meeting as president of the board. And I wanted to make sure you understood what a privilege it is to have this position and how much I appreciate the support I've gotten from you in it. The other thing I wanted to say is that I have sat on, I can't count how many boards, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But of those that are outstanding, I could count in one hand and have digits left over. And I include this board as one of the best boards I have ever had the privilege of serving with. And considering how you got to that point, it's even more impressive. And I have all of the confidence in the future because a board that performs at that level makes sure that everyone they bring in is acclimated to the way they do things. So for my last meeting as president, I am so anxious to get into one of those chairs. I mean, I am ready. I want to thank all of you. I want to thank Dr. Hartman for being so patient with me at agenda meetings. As I walked in there with a list of questions a mile long, and he could answer them all, right?
Usually, yeah.
Usually,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm
Sometimes I
sorry.
just make it up if I don't know.
Yeah, I always have another question. It's my makeup. My husband used to call me she who always has another question, because they never stop. And it's not just my last meeting, we're also losing two board members. And even though Mr. Hurst is not here, I would like to read to you my thank you to him. Philip Hurst was elected to the board in 2021 as a new school director and accepted the responsibility of learning the roles and responsibilities of board service. I suspect he came to us quietly and a bit unsure of what he had gotten into. The learning curve may have been steep and challenging, but he put in the time and effort to find his place and his voice on the board. It was a pleasure for us to watch his journey, and indeed he became a respected member and contributed to deliberations. Phil was never hesitant to share his perspective, nor to cast a dissenting vote as long as it was his true position. He has earned the respect of his fellow directors for his sincerity and honesty. We know it was sometimes challenging to juggle his schedule, but appreciate the effort to fulfill his responsibility to us and his position with the CTC board, for which he always provided timely updates. Phil's presence and input will be missed, and if he's listening somewhere, we wish him well. Now, Michael Talley was elected to the board in 2013 and for 12 years has been an independent and insightful voice, always offering an honest, sincere opinion. He has been diligent about sound financial management, student-centered programs, and policy, supported of a well-rounded curricular and extracurricular programs, and sensitive to the needs of all students. Never in a bad mood, and always cordial and respectful to all, Mike rushes from the train station to attend all meetings, whether on time or slightly late. He could always be counted on to take the responsibilities of board service seriously. He leaves us to continue his own lifelong learning journey, and could have asked for no better than Mike Talley. We wish both of these men to let them know they are respected, they will be missed, and they will be remembered fondly. Yes.
Thank you. And we have one for Phil as well. But,
Yes, just
we'll
because
make
he's
sure
not
he-
here doesn't mean he doesn't get one.
Yep. And I know you asked us not to, but we also have some flowers for you
Oh, my.
to recognize
Thank
your service
you.
as board
they're
president,
Beautiful.
and a card from the board.
Thank you. I'm not going away, you know. But thank you. That's very much appreciated. Okay, we are down to upcoming dates. Those are listed on there. And if that's said, I will take a motion for adjournment. Please.
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.